Hello students, welcome to Unit 11, What is Intelligence? In this unit we'll be focusing on the many different aspects of intelligence and really inquiring as to what is intelligence. And then we'll go into more detail as to how we assess or test for intelligence. So the focus for Unit 11.1 is what is intelligence? What is it? How do we define it? In later units, not only will we build on this unit of what is intelligence, but we will add to the discussion of as to how we measure intelligence and who are the children whose intelligence sets them apart from their peers. But for now, I want you to pause the video and take about maybe 5-10 seconds, take as much time as you need really, and think on your own. How do you define intelligence? What does intelligence mean to you? Is intelligence the ability to use reason or logic? Is it the ability to write and speak clearly? Is it limited to one's performance in school? Is it behavior in social situations? How about knowing when you're right or when you're wrong? Intelligence is not that simple. There are many psychological theories about intelligence that we will examine in this module. So the study of intelligence using statistics and other matrices is called psychometrics. And those who use these tools to study intelligence are called psychometricians. And we're going to be talking about a few psychometricians today, like Gardner and George Spearman. But we'll save our discussion of psychometrics for more detail when we get to assessing intelligence.
Intelligence tests were developed for the practical function of selecting students for admission or placement in schools. Originally, these intelligence tests were not based on any theory of intelligence. They defined intelligence as the ability to do well in school. So more contemporary or modern intelligence tests throw out the old way and adopt a new way. So the new ones, the new IQ tests, they really do measure for intelligence. And we'll talk about that more in Unit 11.2. But for now, let's really define what is intelligence. Intelligence is an inferred process that humans use to explain the different degrees of adapted success in people's behavior. Now, this is a better definition than you'll find in most places. As you'll see, these definitions here for intelligence do not allow us to define intelligence any better because we still have to define, judge, comprehend, think rationally, etc. All right, so it's really hard to really define intelligence.
So because intelligence is so difficult to define, we often rely on the psychometric approach, which we mentioned earlier, the use of metrics or matrices or statistics for the purpose of assessing for intelligence. Well, one type of the psychometric approach is called factor analysis. And factor analysis is the statistical procedure that identifies clusters, or also known as factors, on a test. Factors are related items. So for example, if you're taking an SAT, ACT, EOC exam, and on the English language arts portion of the exam, there's a reading comprehension section, and then there's also a grammar section where you have to correct punctuation and that kind of thing. While those questions are requiring you to perform different tasks, they still relate to one another via the English language arts umbrella. So that would be an example of one factor. Well, a psychologist or a psychometrician named Charles Spearman built on factor analysis with his theory of the general intelligence, or G factor. Spearman based his concept of G on the fact that good performance on a wide variety of cognitive tasks correlates consistently and positively, though not perfectly. But let's talk about this in more detail.
According to Spearman, all intelligent abilities have an area of overlap, which we call G for general ability. Each ability also depends partly on an S factor, or specific ability, like spatial reasoning, mathematical reasoning, mechanical skills, logical reasoning. Okay, so all four of these components contribute to the whole of our general intelligence. So according to Spearman, the G factor is the dominant ability when doing tasks, and the S factors are the lesser abilities. Psychologists are not in agreement on what G represents. The correlations between mental tasks are due in part to their sharing of the same underlying process. But It is also due to the fact that these processes grow together, dependent on the same factor: health, nutrition, education, whatever. Like we've learned already in memory and in learning, if you have a good nutrition, if you sleep well, then you're really going to enhance not just your specific abilities, but also your general intelligence as well. So again, just to reiterate, we have specific abilities that all contribute to our general intelligence. So if we happen to be incredibly brilliant or genius level in mathematics, for example, then we tend to be above average in everything else because of the general intelligence theory. So there are conflicting theories. So conflicting theories have led many psychometric theorists to propose hierarchical theories of intelligence that include both general and specific components. Now, there are two types of intelligence that we have discussed before in previous units, specifically the unit on developmental psychology. There's fluid intelligence, which is the ability to think on the spot and solve novel problems. It's abstract thinking, critical thinking, problem solving. And then there's crystallized intelligence. This is the intelligence of facts, such as state capitals, specific birthdays, mathematical formulas, those kinds of things. And as we've already learned, fluid intelligence tends to decline with age, whereas crystallized intelligence tends to solidify and become stronger with age. Children who do well on one test of fluid intelligence usually do well on other tests of fluid intelligence. Why? Because they're children. Children have more creativity. Children tend to think outside the box more than a 60 to 90-year-old would, for example. So this graph demonstrates that crystallized intelligence does solidify as we age and becomes stronger with age, whereas fluid intelligence, such as creativity, abstract thinking, being able to process new theories of thought, new ways of looking at the world, that declines with age, as we see. So while George Spearman offered a theory of general intelligence with the G factor, a different psychologist named Howard Gardner is going to propose another theory of multiple intelligences, in which he identified 9 distinct types of intelligence. George Spearman would probably not call these 9 types of intelligence. Spearman would probably call them just S, or he would give them specific ability, which contributes to our general overall intelligence. So that's the main difference between Spearman and Gardner. So the first 3 types of intelligence that Gardner highlights are linguistic intelligence, logical mathematical intelligence, and spatial intelligence. But let's go ahead and look through all 9 briefly. So first is linguistic intelligence. This is the sensitivity to the meaning and sounds of words. It's linguistics. We just covered thinking in language. We should know this, I believe. Next is logical mathematical intelligence. This is understanding of objects and symbols and of actions that will be performed on them, of the relations between these actions. And then next is spatial intelligence. The first 2, linguistic and logical mathematical intelligence, are pretty self-explanatory. But what in the world is spatial intelligence? Spatial intelligence is the capacity to perceive the visual world accurately, to perform transformations upon perceptions, and to recreate aspects of visual experiences in the absence of physical stimuli. So if engineers can put things together in their head, or if quarterbacks can see or can accurately throw a 50-yard pass and hit their receiver right on the money, then they probably have a high degree of spatial intelligence. But there are other types of intelligence as well. We only covered 3. What are the remaining 6? The remaining 6 are musical, bodily or kinesthetic intelligence, interpersonal and intrapersonal, naturalistic, and existential intelligence. Let's talk about them. So musical intelligence, it's really hard to figure out, I'm sure, is the sensitivity to individual tones and phrases of music, and understanding of ways to combine tones and phrases into larger musical rhythms and structures. Kids who are in band or choir or anything like that, they typically have a higher musical intelligence. I think it comes with the territory. And then we have bodily kinesthetic intelligence. This is the use of one's body, their vestibular sense, their kinesthetic sense. Like athletes have a much higher body kinesthetic intelligence. Then there's interpersonal intelligence. This is also known as social intelligence. It's the ability to notice and make distinctions among the moods, temperaments, motivations, and intentions of other people. And then there's intrapersonal intelligence. This is the access to one's own feelings, ability to draw on one's emotions to guide and understand one's own behavior. It's recognition of your own personal strengths and weaknesses. It's truly knowing yourself. If you know yourself, you know your likes and preferences, then you have a higher intrapersonal intelligence.
Then there's naturalistic intelligence. It's sensitivity and understanding of planets, animals, and other aspects of nature. I tend to think I have a high naturalistic intelligence, as my wife and I are big outdoorsmen. We love to camp and hike and all those good things. And then there's existential intelligence. This is sensitivity to issues related to the meaning of life, death, and other aspects of the human condition. What is the meaning of life? For me, I know what it is for me, so I feel like I have a high existential intelligence as well. But really, what is intelligence, though? Is savant syndrome, is this a high intelligence? This is where people are genius level in a very specific thing, like whether it's memorizing facts or painting, or their musical intelligence. They're incredibly intelligent. They're genius level on one specific intelligence, but are below the average in intelligence and everything else. In fact, they're typically considered to be autistic or borderline mentally retarded. So the question arises, should we use the word intelligence to describe all valuable skills, like doing calculus, speaking 6 different languages, being able to make the throw from home to second? If we do, then Gardner is correct. People do have many unrelated kinds of intelligences. Now we have changed the definition and meaning of intelligence itself. Gardner's theory has prompted researchers to begin examining other non-traditional aspects of intelligence. The best known is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is the ability to perceive, express, understand, and regulate our own emotions. It's self-control. We might get really frustrated at a test or might get really frustrated with our teacher, but we're able to control our emotions so that we can have more ease in our social interaction with one another. All right, social intelligence, this is just another word for interpersonal intelligence. And then creativity. Is intelligence and creativity linked? Kind of. Creativity correlates with intelligence, but not always. Creativity is the ability to produce novel and valuable ideas. And then the 5 components of creativity are expertise. It's hard to be creative or innovative in automotive mechanics if you don't know anything about automobiles. How can you create a new car if you don't know anything about automotive mechanics? So you have to have expertise in order to be creative. You also have to have an imaginative thinking skills. You have to think outside the box. You have to have a venturesome personality. You have to be willing to try new things. You have to have intrinsic motivation, which is self-motivation. You have to be able to want to innovate and be creative on your own. No one else can motivate you. You have your own motivation. And then you have to have a creative environment. This is why we see the Google business model. They try to create their environment at Google very creative, very open-minded, so people can start thinking outside the box and be creative and come up with new ideas. Or is neurological processing the basis for intelligence? For people who can process information faster, manipulate information faster, are they typically more intelligent? Well, students, people, adults, whoever, if they can process information faster in their neurological processes, then they tend to score higher on intelligence scores. People who can absorb stimuli from their environment, process it in their cognitive processing, and then use it for something faster than anyone else, those people tend to be more intelligent than others. So there is a positive correlation between processing speed and intelligence. All right, so we will discuss these further in class, and then I have some YouTube videos that will highlight and give you good examples of some of these concepts.